Imagine the sky is on fire. Not metaphorically or as a dramatic flourish you might see from an actor at a performance. Literally. From one end of the horizon to the other, it burns. Kingdoms have been reduced now to memory. The ground is heavy with those who have paid the high cost of war. But in the center of this, a lone warrior stands tall and triumphant in the early morning sun. He has survived. He has survived the enemy's wrath. What's going on, my fellow bookworms and bibliophiles? It is I, the SpokenShelf. Guys, what an experience we have had over these last few weeks reviewing these wonderful books from this wonderful series by John Gwynne. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. We are at book 4 of the Faithful and the Fallen series. We are talking today about wrath. And I want you guys to understand a few things before I go any further, of course. If you've read the other 3 books and you've gotten into wrath and you've started it, you will know. If you don't know, this book does not ease you into this at all. It does not reintroduce you to the world. It does not hold your hand at the door telling you, hey, do you remember all these characters? No. Wrath grabs you by the collar of your shirt on the very first page and drags you into the most breathtaking, pulse-hammering, jaw-dropping reading experience that John Gwynne has ever put his name to. I have loved this series. I have championed it in every review of this channel. I have told you again and again that Gwynne has been building towards something extraordinary, but nothing, not malice, not valor, not ruin, nothing prepared me for what wrath actually delivers. This is the book that made me forget that I was reading, if you can believe that. The book was made to miss meals, miss sleep, miss the outside world entirely. I was taking this book, reading with me when I woke up in the morning, when I went to bed at night, when I was in between on breaks at work, on my lunch break. This is what I was doing. So it's an incredible ride, and we're going to talk about why it's such a magnificent read. Wrath by John Gwynne, the 4th book in the Faithful and the Fallen. This book has made me sit in silence when it was all said and done, guys, when it was all over. Not because it left me empty, but because it left me so completely and overwhelmingly full. So let's get started about all the topics we're going to talk about today. You guys know what to do. Strap in. Remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about that's kind of a unique problem with book series at the very end is the finale problem. Does John Gwynne stick this landing? So let's talk about something that almost no one discusses when reviewing fantasy series, and that is the finale problem. The final book of any epic fantasy series is the most dangerous position a writer can occupy, in my opinion. It must simultaneously deliver on everything the series has built up to that point, resolve every thread, honor every character, and provide an ending worthy of the journey itself. Most series tend to fail this challenge in some way, shape, or form. There's no perfect ending, of course, for everybody, but they either rush the resolution. You see this a lot in very much authors that are new to the game, of course, or they drag it out past the point of satisfaction. Readers will often describe how they have finished a book feeling either vaguely let down sometimes, grateful that it's over, or just maybe not quite glad of how it all ended. Of course, there are some folks that completely disagree about certain books with everybody, and some people think that there are perfect wrap-ups to finales, but it depends on each person. Gwynne, however, refuses to do this, in my opinion. Wrath is not a letdown by any means. It is not a rushed job, of course. It's 4 books long for everything, but the book itself stands out as a complete and devastating finale at times. A book that delivers on every emotional payoff, every character arc, every thematic question that has been building since Malice, and you do not read Wrath to get something or somewhere else Wrath is the destination of everything that we have read so far. So, how does Gwynne do it? By understanding that finales fail when they withhold, when they save nothing for the reader, when they give everything freely, honestly, and without reservation. Gwynne gives you everything in Wrath. Everything. And the remarkable thing, the thing that makes him and marks him as a genuine, exceptional writer is that all the feels that we have accumulated and earned through these books get well spent. And that is what I think a great finale feels like and is. And that is what makes Wrath a great finale to this series. So, we're going to talk a little bit about characters at their breaking point here because let's face it, these characters, they become more than just characters in a book. They become people. And Wrath, by all of its circumstances, the people are everything. By this point in the series, Gwynne has had 4 books to make us love these characters. 4 books to build relationships, establish the stakes, create the bonds that make what happens in Wrath land with the force that it does. And in Wrath, he uses every single one of these bonds brilliantly. Corbin in Wrath is something I did not have a word for when I finished the book. He has moved beyond the uncertain boy of malice, beyond the hardening survivor of valor, beyond even the forged warrior of ruin. By Wrath, he has become something that only happens to characters who have been written with this level of consistency and care across 4 volumes. He has become mythic in his own way, even though he's just a man. Not in the sense of being invincible or superhuman mind, no. Mythic is in the sense that every choice that he makes carries the weight of everything he has been. Every action resonates against everything the series has shown us what he is capable of. The supporting cast reaches its peak here in ways that genuinely moved me as well. Characters whose arcs have been running since Malice reach their conclusions, not all of them the conclusions you hope for, maybe. Not all of them are comfortable, but every single one of them is earned. Gwynne does not give characters easy endings. He gives them true ones, honest ones. And then there is the matter of who breaks. I will not tell you who, I will not tell you how. What I will tell you, though, is that Wrath contains character moments that I was not prepared for, moments that recontextualize everything that came before them and leaving you sitting there in the book in your hand. It's closed, or your finger is marking the page, and you need time before you can pick up the next chapter or the next paragraph or even the next line. These are not just characters anymore. They have not been characters for a long time. They have become like people that your good friends. And Wrath treats them accordingly with all the love and all the ruthlessness that this world implies. Okay, so next I'm going to be talking about the action here, the pinnacle of all of these books leading up to this book here. I have made the same claim in every review in this series that John Gwynne writes battle sequences better than almost anyone working in epic fantasy today. In Malice, the action, I talked about how it made my pulse quicken. In Valor, you kind of feel this aching pain when you are reading these battle sequences because you can see the hardship that people run through, the cost of everything. And in Ruin, he did both of those at the same time as it's getting closer and closer to the finale. You feel this buildup. And in Wrath, it kind of breaks you a little bit. And I mean that as the highest possible compliment. The battle sequences in Wrath are the finest writing in this entire series. Not just the finest action writing, the finest writing full stop. Because by this point, Gwynne has done something that takes 4 books to accomplish, really. He has made the battles inseparable from the emotional architecture of the story. Every charge is a character moment. Every loss is a consequence of something that was planted in the books, ages ago. Every victory feels a heavy cost, and sometimes it's a cost that you do not want to spend. the scale is staggering too. Wrath operates at a level of an epic scope that should collapse under its own weight in some regards, and yet it doesn't. It soars, in fact. Gwynne holds the macro and the micro simultaneously with confidence. That is simply extraordinary. You feel the sweep of history being made and the terror of the individual inside it at exactly the same moment, which is incredible writing just to say that just by itself. There are sequences in this book that I had to stop reading in the middle of or after of, not because they were too violent, but because they were dark. They were true, sometimes too true, and maybe even too honest about what the cost it takes to stand in the middle of something this large and still choose to be a good person, an honorable person. If you have read Malice, Valor, and Ruin and thought the action could not get better, Wrath will prove you magnificently wrong. And next part I want to talk about is this in-depth character analysis of a couple of different characters. Before we talk about what Wrath means thematically, we need to talk about a few of the main people here, because this is the finale of this series. There are more books in this universe moving forward, but most of these characters that we see in this book are not going to be in this next one. And the ones that aren't, I want to talk more about because they were an absolute delight to read. And Gwynne has given these characters throughout this whole series an incredible voice. Like I said, these characters feel like people now. And it's on a whole nother level of writing. You feel the humanity in every single one of them, the good and the bad on both sides, because you see the human condition in both of them. And he gives a wonderful voice to all of them. So let's start with our main guy here, Corbin. I have tracked Corbin across 4 books now. I have watched him go from the uncertain boy in Malice who was very scared and did not like the idea of fighting because he got bullied, but he still proved brave because he still chose to fight anyways, even though he was scared. He's deeply loyal. He's profoundly unsure of his place in the world sometimes in the beginning, but through the hardening of Valor and the forging of Ruin and into Wrath here, where he arrives as something this series has been building towards since page 1, he becomes, like I said before, mythical by the start and end of Wrath here. He's not invincible. He's never been invincible, but he is mythic in his truest sense. Every choice he makes in this book carries an accumulation of weight. Every moment of courage resonates against every moment of doubt that's preceded it. His arc is one of the finest in the contemporary epic fantasy, not because he becomes the greatest warrior or defeats the greatest enemy, but because he becomes fully and finally himself. And that is the hardest thing to do as a character, to write about for certain, and even in real life as well. And Gwynne makes this feel inevitable. One person I haven't talked about a whole lot is Nether. Nether is basically Corbin's main enemy here. If Corbin is the heart of this series, Nether is probably its most complex. He begins as an antagonist and ends up as something far more difficult to categorize. He's a man who chose the wrong side with the best intentions possible, and he spent 4 books paying the price of that choice. His arc in Wrath, is the one that surprised me the most. Gwynne does not give Nether an easy redemption. He gives him something harder and more honest, a reckoning. A moment where everything he has done and everything he has lost converges, and he must decide what that convergence means. I will not tell you what he decides. I will tell you that when he decides it, you feel it in a way that it surprises you and then it doesn't, because Gwynne has made you understand that Nether, even when you could not agree with him fully, you still have a level of understanding, of what makes the ending of his arc land so completely. and there is justice at the end for his choices. A lot of times in this book, he often quotes the greater good, and it's the age-old question of how much is too much for the greater good. The next person I'm talking about is definitely Veritas. Veritas is the loyal shield man of Nether from the beginning of the books. He is the man who believed. He believed in Veritas. Veritas, Veritas believed in Nether. Veritas is the character who most directly embodies the series' central theme: what does loyalty cost you when the thing you are loyal to turns out to be something other than what you thought? His journey from Nether to, becoming he starts out as his brother, his devoted companion, and then he becomes, in Wrath here, and even before the books, one of his greatest enemies here. It's heartbreaking, but at the same time, it was coming. You could see it happening from a mile away. It's a devastating arc in this series because they're brothers that, if things had gone any other way, they still would have been good friends. Gwynne never raises his voice with Veritas. He simply keeps pressing him. He keeps asking him. He keeps removing certainties that Veritas has built in his identity one by one until what remains is a man that's underneath, and he has to make the choice. And these choices are not easy to make. It breaks his heart. And by the time Wrath has arrived, that choice has arrived, and Veritas makes his choices in a way that are completely heartbreaking but extremely brave and extremely human. And his ending ends up being a very nice one that you don't really get to find out till the next series later on, but it makes you feel good that he was able to find some peace after all of that. And another character that deserves peace that finally got it was Makeen. Oh man, Makeen, the old wolf, the man who thought he had nothing left but his wrath, his revenge. He channeled his wrath into something purposeful that kept him alive, that, was destroying him from the inside out. Makeen is the character who gives his final book its title in the deepest sense. He is the wrath the series has been building towards. It is cold, focused, and entirely human. He does not fight because he believes in a cause in any way that Corbin or Veritas does. He fights because of what has been taken from him and what he has learned to love and does not want to lose. Because some losses demand an answer, and in Wrath, Makeen gives that answer. What Gwynne does with him in his final volume is extraordinary. He takes a man defined by grief and shows you that at the very last, what is left of him after that grief has found its resolution, and the answer is moving in ways that I did not expect. And he got to have some peace and happiness for himself. Cohen, who is Corbin's sister, I have mentioned off and on in this series. She has been one of this series' most underrated presence from the very beginning. Fierce, pragmatic, ferociously protective of Corbin, and possessed of a moral clarity that cuts through the series. Theological complexity like a blade. In Wrath, she steps fully into her own. Her arc is no longer defined in relation to her brother. She has her own war to fight, her own losses to absorb, her own answers to find, and Gwynne gives Cohen moments in this book that belong entirely to her. She becomes an integral part of the final moments of defeating the antagonist here, that the main god here, with his Kadashim and Azeroth himself. It's incredible to see her finally come through everything and finding her own purpose. She has moments of courage, of grief, of that particular stubbornness that she and Corbin both have as brother and sister, that has always kind of been their defining qualities, and she deserves every single one of these mantles. And then there is Storm. Storm, I have been careful to talk about in every review. I have named her, acknowledged her, and refused to say what she means to the story by the time you reach the later books. But I'm going to be careful here too, but I will say this. Storm is not a wolf or a pet. She has not been a wolf for a long time. She is the soul of this series in animal form. Loyalty made flesh and furry. Love made action, the purest expression of everything Gwynne believes about what it means to stand beside someone through everything the world can throw at you. What Gwynne gives Storm in Wrath is the most honest thing in the book. And if you have followed her from Malice, and you all have if you've read this book, then what happens to her in these final pages will stay with you long after this last page is turned. It's really quite an amazing story. There's so many parts where you feel like things are going to go one way, that there's no hope, and things are able to be pulled out at the last second, and we have like this Hail Mary type throw from one end of the field to the other, and things are able to work out. These 6 characters are not the only ones who matter in Wrath, of course, but they are the ones who carries the series home for me, and Gwynne honors every single one of them. Not with easy or comfortable endings and conclusions, but with true ones and honest ones. The kind that could only happen to people who have lived 4 books of this. And that is what great character writing looks like. And Wrath is full of it. So, what did I not like about it? What didn't work? Honesty is a commitment, like I've always said in this series, and I will continue to say that in every single book. And Wrath, for all that it has surpassed my expectations, is not without its imperfections. The breathless urgency that is Wrath's greatest strength is also in places its greatest limitation. The pacing is relentless. The relentlessness is appropriate to the story being told. This is the penultimate volume of a war that has been building for 4 books, and there is no natural place for the story to pause and breathe, because war does not pause to breathe, usually. But there are threads in this book, character relationships, quieter emotional moments that I think deserved more space than the pace allowed for them. There are also 1 or 2 storylines that feel the pressure of the approaching finale more acutely than others. Certain threads have been carefully developed across 3 previous books, are resolved here with a speed that, while not quite unsatisfying, does not fully honor the investment Gwynne has been making in building them. In a series of this scope with this many moving parts, this is perhaps inevitable, but it's worth noting. And I will say this plainly, if you have not read Malice, Valor, or Ruin, immediately before picking up Wrath, you need to do so. This book assumes total recall of everything that has come before it. Characters and events referenced in passing carry enormous weight, and if those references have faded from memory, something is lost. None of this diminishes, though, my experience of Wrath in any significant way, but a review without honesty is not a review, and you guys deserve this full picture. So, what is the themes of this book? This edge of everything, if you will. Let's talk about that. What Wrath is actually asking, because the thematic work Gwynne does in this book is probably its most demanding of the series. Malice asked whether ordinary people could rise to meet an extraordinary conflict. Valor asked what you sacrifice for a cause you believe in. Ruin asks what victory costs when you have paid the price of it. Wrath asks the questions only a finale can ask. What are you willing to become in order to end this? And then it answers it. That is the hardest question of this series, because in Wrath, the characters have already sacrificed sometimes everything from previous books, and have sacrificed everything that has been asked of them. They've lost people. They have made choices they cannot unmake. They have paid prices they cannot be refunded on. And Gwynne asks, given all that, given how much you have already spent, how much further can you go, and will you go? The answer is different for every character, and every answer is honest. The title carries the full weight of the book's thematic ambitions. Wrath. Not courage, not sacrifice or redemption. Wrath. It's cold, it's focused, a final kind. The kind that comes from loving something enough to burn for it. Gwynne is asking whether Wrath righteous, purposed, entirely human wrath is a sin or a necessity? And he does not answer that question easily. Faith in this book is not tested, it is proven, or it's abandoned. There is no middle ground left. The theological architecture that Gwynne constructs in Malice reaches its penultimate expression here. And what it reveals about the gods, about their war, and about the mortals caught inside it is both deeply satisfying and, in moments, deeply unsettling. This is a series that has always tested its themes with genuine seriousness. In Wrath, that seriousness reaches its fullest expression, yet it is still extraordinary. So, what is the verdict? Has it surpassed Ruin? Did Wrath live up to Ruin? Did it live up to the other books? It has. Completely. Decisively. In ways that I was not prepared for. I want to be specific about what that means, because surpassing Ruin is a significant claim. Ruin was the book that convinced me The Faithful and the Fallen belonged in the conversation with the genre's finest achievements. Ruin was the book that proved Gwynne's ambition was not outpacing his ability. Ruin was extraordinary. Wrath is more extraordinary because Wrath has 4 books of foundation beneath it, and Gwynne uses every inch of this rich foundation. Every character in this story becomes their true version of themselves. And sometimes it's through a hard way, not through an easy way. And sometimes it's through self-reflection, and sometimes it's through battle. And every battle sequence, starts to hurt more and more as you go through. Probably starting in Valor and going through that. Every thematic question cuts deeper because of Ruin. And Wrath is the book that could only exist because of everything that has come before it. And it justifies every page of everything that comes before it as well. Reading Wrath, I find myself thinking about what it means for a fantasy series to truly earn its ending. Most series arrive at their conclusion and you are glad that it's over sometimes. Satisfied perhaps, but ready to move on. Reading Wrath, I found myself desperate for the finale and sometimes dreading the finale as well. Desperate because what Gwynne has built demands to be completed, and dreading because completing it means the ending of this series. This is the mark of a series that has done everything right to the best of John Gwynne's ability. Is it perfect? No, nothing at this scale can be, but its flaws are the honest costs of extraordinary ambition across these 4 volumes, and they do not diminish what Gwynne has achieved. Wrath is one of the finest high fantasy finales that I have read in a long time. It is a book that proves that John Gwynne is not merely a talented craftsman, he is a genuine artist working at the peak of his powers. The Faithful and the Fallen is a complete and extraordinary achievement, and Wrath is its perfect conclusion. The Faithful and Fallen is complete, and what's next is the next series in this universe of blood and bone. We will continue that at another time, and where this journey has ended, a new journey will begin there. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Spoken Shelf. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see here, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. I greatly appreciate all the likes and the comments I've had and the interaction between y'all on YouTube and Instagram. I greatly appreciate it. Have a fantastic day. Keep reading. Semper perigite legere.